Welcome to Chase Thoughts. My name's Chase, and today I'm going to be starting a new mini-series as part of Chase Thoughts, where we are going to be talking about The Last Jedi and the new Star Wars movies. And the entire goal of this mini-series is to just give more context to the events of The Force Awakens and primarily The Last Jedi, because there's a lot of mixed reviews, a lot of mixed bag takes on The Last Jedi, and I originally wanted to do a review of The Last Jedi, but instead I thought it would be more beneficial to everybody to kind of go through and give what I feel is more context to the movies. As always, when you're writing a movie and when you're working with a movie, you are working on a 2-hour and 30-minute time block. It is impossible to fit everything that happens in a universe as huge as the Star Wars universe in one 2-hour and 30-minute time slot. So things have to be cut out, things have to be left out, and things kind of just have to be filled in with other sources, whether they be reference books, articles on StarWars.com, books, movie novelizations, and even animated series, which Star Wars is a fan of doing all of those things. They've done all of those things in the past, and they will continue to do those things even with Disney owning them. Many people out there just don't have the time to read every book, every article, every reference book, and watch every episode of every TV show that Star Wars makes, like some crazy people do, not naming any names. Chase Talks! Now, some people out there might call some of the context I give headcanon, and I would totally agree with that. I wouldn't dispute that it could be just be headcanon. I could be completely wrong on the thought process behind some of these decisions, but at the end of the day, this is what I think is extra context to it, and I think that listening to this would help give you extra context while watching the movies as well, and maybe make watching the movie a more enjoyable experience for you. And I will be looking for a lot of these references and a lot of this extra context in the Legends universe. Now, a lot of people have been like, Legends and canon are just separate. Like, you can't bring them over. False statement. Dave Filoni has said that he uses inspiration from Legends while writing the Clone Wars, while writing Rebels. He used inspiration from Legends. Now, he didn't just take Legends stories and turn them into canon stories, but he did use inspiration from them, and I would assume that they use Legends inspiration while writing the films. And you can see many mirrored events from Legends Star Wars history in the new Star Wars movies. And after all, Star Wars is a story about if you don't learn from history, you will repeat it. And there are two main points that I wanted to talk about really quick in the opening scene, and that is the first thing we're going to talk about today. Remember that throughout this entire series, there are going to be spoilers. If you have not seen The Last Jedi yet, even though it's been about 2 months since it was released, stop the video now. I do not want to spoil it for you, and I don't want people upset that I may have spoiled something. And where else to start but in the beginning of the opening scene, which is the text crawl. Now, I am going to read the text crawl really quick just so we know and we're all on the same base of what it read. And it read, "The First Order reigns, having decimated the peaceful Republic. Supreme Leader Snoke now deploys his merciless legions to seize military control of the galaxy. Only General Leia Organa's band of resistance fighters stand against the rising tyranny, certain that the Jedi Master Luke Skywalker will return and restore a spark of hope to the fight. But the resistance has been exposed. As the First Order speeds towards the Rebel base, the brave heroes mount a desperate escape." Now, reading this leads me to believe that this movie takes place immediately after the end of Episode 7. Near the end of Episode 7, we saw Starkiller Base destroy the system containing the capital of the New Republic and the majority of the New Republic fleet. Now, with very little time between the destruction of the homeworld, or the capital of the New Republic, and the start of Episode 8, the Republic fleet, or the remnants of it that weren't destroyed, stuff hovering above other planets, protecting other planets, would be in complete disarray. This would be the perfect time for Supreme Leader Snoke to mount his attack to wipe out both the Resistance and the remnants of the New Republic, which are in total disarray. It just makes sense to me that that's the state they would be in. I've seen a lot of people questioning, where is the New Republic fleet? The majority of it was destroyed, and the rest of it would be in complete disarray from the loss of their complete command structure. They'd be trying to find out who's next in chain of command, who is the leader of the remaining forces. Are they just stationed to protect their planets? Is a planet's government now leading the New Republic? Who is leading the New Republic? Who's leading the forces? Who's doing what? And Leia would seem seem to be the obvious choice to take command of the New Republic fleet, but what we need to remember is that the Resistance is a separate entity to the New Republic, not fully sanctioned by the New Republic. The Resistance is basically Leia's private army of those who were uncertain of the ability of the Imperials to stay true to the treaty signed after the Battle of Jakku, which called for the disarmament of the Imperial remnants. So, much like in Legends, the Empire is not fully gone, and the Imperial remnants still remain. And the Imperials who were unsettled by the treaty fled into the unknown region, where they were united by Supreme Leader Snoke. Now let's fast forward back to the end of Episode 7. Now at this point we know that the First Order knows the location of the Resistance, and was preparing to fire upon it with the Starkiller base, before it was destroyed. Despite the destruction of their superweapon, it makes sense for Snoke to immediately reroute General Hux to wipe out the Resistance, with the New Republic in total disarray from the loss of their leadership. Which brings us to the start of Episode 8, and that is exactly what we see, with General Hux about to invade the Resistance base and completely wipe out the Resistance as they are escaping. The second thing I want to talk about this opening scene is, where were the Resistance bombers, or rather, where were the Resistance bombers in Episode 7? Since it would appear that they would be very good assets to actually have used on the attack on Starkiller Base. And we actually get an answer on that from new reference books and StarWars.com articles. We know that these ships were actually part of Vice Admiral Holdo's fleet, or her command attack flotilla, I guess you could call it. They were part of the Ninka. That's where they would actually dock on top of the Ninka, which served as her flagship. And Vice Admiral Holdo is the woman who takes command of the Radis later in Episode 8 and sacrifices herself to secure the Resistance's escape onto the close nearby planet. And if Vice Admiral Holdo is so great, where was she in Episode 7 in general? And where she was actually the Ninka was deployed on assignment with her forces, so they were unavailable during the attack on Starkiller Base. Starkiller Base in Episode 7, they say that they know the location of the rebels. They know the location of the entire Resistance base, so that was going to be Starkiller's next attack. And their entire goal was to attack and stop Starkiller Base before it attacked them, because they didn't think they'd be able to evacuate in time. We actually see in Episode 7 that when the Starkiller Base fires and destroys the Resistance fleet that's hovering, or not the Resistance fleet, the New Republic fleet that is hovering above the planets in that system, completely wipes them out with the planets. So they have to evacuate as quick as possible, but they won't be able to evacuate, so they decide to do the attack at the recommendation of Finn, who says that he knows how to take down the shields. So that is actually why the Ninka was not seen in Episode 7. It was unavailable at the time. Of course, story and writing, it could have not have been concepted at that time, but Star Wars is also a huge universe, so there are other things taking place. And actually, why we see Holdo later in the film dislike Poe was because, or maybe rather not dislike him, but at least kind of disregard him or just be cautious around him, is because that Poe's attack, the unsanctioned attack on the First Order fleet, actually resulted in the destruction of most of her fleet, including the Ninka, which served as her command ship for a long time, or her flagship for a long time. So that is the main reason why she was kind of cautious around him, and it adds more context to her actions in relation to him later, just because of the loss of so many of her forces. And you might be asking, why didn't we see this play out in the film? Why didn't they specifically say some of these aspects? Why didn't we see her away on assignment? Why didn't we see her just barely able to show up to help the Resistance's evacuation and then to hold off the First Order fleet while they're escaping? Why didn't we see this in the film? And you have to remember that they were working with a 2-hour and 30-minute block. It's already one of the longest Star Wars movies that there have ever been. So they were on a time-constricted block. And a lot of people might be like, well, there were other parts of the movie they could cut out. Like, a lot of people disliked Finn's story, things like that. And they could have made more room for stuff like this. And while I do agree with that, you have to know that there's always going to be more context to it. And that's kind of the main purpose of this series, is just to add more context to the things that happen in The Last Jedi. I'm of course not trying to fight against and argue with everybody. I'm just trying to add more context to the film. I personally enjoyed the film a lot, and definitely these extra pieces of context, or at least some of this is going to be, might just be my headcanon too, but I think that's going to add a lot extra context to it, or at least what I think is context to the movie, and make the movie maybe a little bit more enjoyable experience, and maybe help your viewing of this movie as well. And that's going to be it for this first episode. I just want to talk about the two things of the opening scene of The Last Jedi, the rolling credits, and then kind of give a little bit more context to the Resistance bombers, the new Resistance bombers that we did see in the movie. As always, remember to rate the video, comment the video, and subscribe so you never miss another episode of Chase Talks. There are definitely going to be some more of these videos coming up in the future, so look for those too. I'm going to try and give more context to a lot of points in the movie. I'm going to maybe go scene by scene through the movie, maybe not that intense, but something similar to it. So until next time, this is Chase, signing off.